Thank you, Susan. Most of all, thank you, John, for setting this up. An outstanding forum. It's an honor to be here. I'm Travis Grantlin. I'm a constitutional conservative Republican. I'm a third-generation Arizonan. I'm a proud husband and father. My wife, Patricia, is here tonight with our 2 daughters. And Patricia, say hi. I'm a business owner, and I'm a National Guard pilot here in Arizona. I fly KC-135 in the Phoenix Air Guard. I hold the rank of captain. And it's an honor to serve that way. And I want to say in the 30 seconds I have, regardless of what happens in this primary, in 2.5 weeks for the most part, we must stick together as Republicans and as conservatives and support whatever candidate up here gets the nomination and ensure CD9 goes to the Republican Party. It will be the tipping point in this state. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you very much. I'm Lisa Borowski. I'm a native of the Valley, one of the ones that raised their hand. I'm currently a member of the Scottsdale City Council. I started on the debate forum circuit at the Granite Reef Senior Center in Scottsdale, so it's befitting that we conclude our debate cycle here on the southern portion of the district. So I'm thrilled to be here. Graduate of ASU, graduated from St. John's Law School, and I've been a practicing attorney for over 15 years here in the Valley. I had my own firm for probably 6 years, so I too am familiar with the challenges of running a small business, and those challenges are near and dear to my heart. Recently merged my practice with a large firm in Tempe. Very excited about that, to be on Tempe Town Lake. I have a beautiful daughter, 7 years old, and I am in this race because I have found firsthand through my dealings on the Scottsdale City Council the tough decisions that need to be made with respect to spending in this country. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Leah Campo-Shandelbauer, and I'm a wife and mother of 4 children, and my husband is currently serving a tour in Afghanistan. I recently left a career serving as a clandestine service officer in the CIA, and I've jumped into this race because I feel very strongly that we cannot leave or saddle our children with debt, and I want to be part of the solution to the problems that are plaguing our country's economy right now. And I'll just end by saying that I'm the only candidate in this race who's been endorsed by Arizona Right to Life and by Citizens United, Trey Gowdy on the Fast and Furious loudest voice in Washington in working on that issue, and I'm very proud to have all their support. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jeff Thompson. I lived here in Ahwatukee 31 years, and I'm not a politician. I'm a retired businessman. I think this is the most important election in our lifetime, and that's why I entered this race. I quote Thomas Jefferson, and he said, "Tyranny gets a foothold when people of good conscience remain silent." It's very, very important with what's going on with our economy that we send someone back with a strong business background that really understands how to get things done and is willing to draw a line in the sand. And I think that message will probably resonate as we progress tonight. Thank you all for coming, and thanks, John, for putting this on, wherever you are.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Rogers, and I live in the district. I live in Tempe. My husband, Hal Cunnin, is in the audience. My daughter, Emily, our daughter, Emily, is in the audience. I'm a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, one of the first women pilots in the Air Force. I served 20 years. I retired 15 years ago when Emily was just 6 years old, and our son George was 9 years old, and we opened a business out of our living room. That business now has 14 employees, and I need a payroll, and I'm the last one to be paid. It's an honor to be an American. I'm a 5th-generation military officer, and I look forward to answering everyone's questions tonight. Thank you.
Candidates, thank you. Very, very helpful to get us started. And before we get to the questions, while you're filling out your cards, because we want the questions to come from you and the community, if we don't get questions, you're stuck with my questions and Ed's questions. And although I'm a voter in the district, I think you want to have a chance to ask candidates what's on your mind. I would like to take a minute to introduce an elected official who has joined us. Phoenix City Council communities don't feel that the Republican Party sees them as any part of the future of the Republican Party. So this is a two-part question. With the fastest growing population being Latino and Latinas, what should the Republican Party do to sway many in that community to join the party? And more importantly, the community, this is not a trick question, I think you can do this, can you name 3 Latino or Latina Republican elected officials in local, state, or national office? I understand that's across the country. And we're going to start at one end and we'll switch who starts as we go through. So I'm going to start at the other end with Wendy.
There are 2 issues that are of very acute importance to all Americans, especially the Hispanic community. And that is the economy, number 1, and values, number 2. And I am of the opinion that if we get government out of the way regarding the economy, and as a small business owner, I can tell you how acutely I battle the government every day with regulation, taxation, and overall intrusion, then all boats will rise. And when all boats rise in getting government out of the way and enabling small business to hire more people, that helps all Americans. Number 2, I think the Hispanic community especially appreciates, in my case, my 100% pro-life message, the traditional family values, and I think you would agree that especially the Hispanic community, as many of us conservative Americans.
You knew what she was going to say. I went to an event here in town a couple months ago, and it was a Hispanic event put on by television station 33, and you'd think that the #1 interest that they had would have been immigration, but it wasn't. It was 5th. Jobs was 1st. And I think the one thing that irritates me is I'm not a divisive person at all. And I do not like to see us break out segments and say, what are you going to do for Latinos, or what are you going to do for blacks? What I'm going to do is going to be best for all Americans. We have got a real problem in this country. We've got $16 trillion in debt. It's grown by $4.1 billion a day. Our budget deficit's $1.3 trillion. So of all the money that comes in, the first 40 cents pays the interest on the debt. With the other 60 cents that comes in of every tax dollar that you send in, it's not enough to pay for the entitlement program. The entire cost of the government's beyond that. We've got to fix that. We've got to make cuts. No one wants to make cuts. All they talk about is borrowing or printing. We printed $2.5 trillion since this administration's been in office. Or taxing. Taxing's not the problem. We've got to make cuts.
Well, I can say from personal experience, because I am Hispanic, and from all the polling that's been done on issues that matter to the Hispanic community, that they're the same, just as the others have articulated here, the same issues that we care about. We care about the economy, and we care about our children's futures and maintaining the American dream for our children. I think the problem that the Republican Party has had with the Hispanic community is just a matter of messaging. I think that the Democrats have micro-targeted in a manner that they've been able to attract Hispanics to vote their way. And as a sheer political matter, we need the Hispanic vote to come our way. And happily, the Hispanic vote should come our way and can come our way if we message correctly, if we talk about values, if we talk about life, if we talk about freedom and free enterprise. Those are issues that matter to Hispanics just as much as they matter to us. Thank you. Or I guess me too, because I am Hispanic.
Thank you. I think it's about bringing people together. I mean, let's be honest. I think our own party, regardless of your background and origin, has been divided. We see it a lot in the state and across the country. I think as we move forward, as I move forward in seeking this office, my goal would really be to bring people together, including the Hispanic population. Growing up here, I mean, I'm fully well aware that the Hispanic population, just like all of our population in Arizona, it's part of our integral fabric of our community. And what's important to the Hispanic population, I dare say, is what's important to me and what's important to people that are non-Hispanic. And that is getting the country back on track. And that is getting rid of the partisan politics, the attacks on each other, working together to make some forward progress. I mean, I think that the jobs and the economy are so important to everyone, including, I believe it's 33% of our community is Hispanic. And so I would dare say that they should be as much focused on the future of the Republican Party as I am. Thank you.
Two-part question, and I'll always try to answer the question. I can promise you that. We're all Americans. And, you know, to me, as a constitutionalist and as a proud Republican, it doesn't matter if you're black or brown or white. You know, Jeff made a good point. We're $16 trillion in debt. We have a federal government that has its hands in every single aspect of our everyday lives. They're in our schools, they're in our businesses, they're in our homes, they're in our churches, and it's got to stop. And you know, it's just like talking to folks in the other party, whether they be a Democrat or an independent. You tell them what's affecting them directly, why they're paying $4 a gallon at the pump, why groceries are costing so much, where their tax dollars are going. And that's how you relate to the Hispanic community. You treat them no different than any other community. Marco Rubio, and one of the endorsements I'm the most proud of, Steve Montenegro, who's the legislature here in Arizona. And all I can do is do. At least I got that many. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. And it seems as though we did have the lapse of memory. That was a two-part question. So why don't we go back and ask if we can come up with some more Hispanic legislators. Move it back. All it has to be is an elected official, Hispanic elected official. One more down. We're going to start the next person. There we go.
Okay. I got to tell you once again, I'm not a divisive guy. We've got a divisive president. And I really don't think of people as to what their class is and what race they're in. And we all know Marco Rubio, and I don't sit there and try to tag people and go, oh, you know, Asian, Hispanic. I don't do that, so, sorry.
I don't either, but I do know a few legislators who are Hispanic. Ileana Ros-Lehtinen, Susana Martinez in New Mexico, Marco Rubio, of course, many on the Florida delegation, and hopefully, God willing, me in a few months.
Susana Martinez, I was going to say too. I didn't catch the part, Travis said it was just Republican, but Ed Pastor, obviously. I think he said any elected, oh, just Republican. Because I thought of David Ortega, previously elected in Scottsdale, and Ed Pastor, of course, on the other side. So, Susana Martinez, what's been already said.
No, you did it already.
I flew airplanes, and in the cockpit, we all had a mission. And it didn't matter what ethnicity we were. And of course, you know, Susana Martinez, Marco Rubio, I admire them both. But when you have a mission to perform, we're all Americans. We're all Arizonans. And I have a problem dwelling on divisiveness. I want to bring people together. I have all kinds of people who work for me in my business. We go out and we do home inspections, and we go into people's homes, and they trust us. Why? Because we perform well, because we provide excellent customer service, and we're trustworthy.
Okay, candidates, we're going to move on to a lot of great questions that have come from the audience, so you'll know the source of these at this point. I think, Leah, you're next to start in the line for answers. With the Supreme Court ruling on Obamacare, how can small business be protected from negative impacts? It seems large corporations are finding ways to be exempt, but what happens to small and medium-sized businesses?
Well, I hopefully the next Congress is successful in repealing Obamacare, and that's the immediate way we can relieve the uncertainty that hangs over small businesses, and then set to establishing a real market for healthcare one that treats individuals and businesses in terms of tax treatment the same way, one that gives people the freedom to purchase plans across state lines, and all of this can happen once a Congress, hopefully a Republican Congress, is able to repeal, and the Senate is able to repeal Obamacare.
Thank you. That really is the issue, the regulatory runaway. You know, the big corporations can afford to hire the lobbyists and press their special interest agenda. And really the trickle-down effect with these regulations, the small business owners are the ones that get affected the most. So I absolutely think that you know, that's who I'm here in the race to protect, the small business, the growing business, the entrepreneurs. I mean, I think that's what Arizona is so well known for. So getting the control of these regulations is just absolutely critical. I think that Congress should be required to approve regulations that are enacted that have a significant impact on the economy. As a sitting Congress member, you're the closest to the heartbeat of the voters, having to go up for re-election every 2 years. You're the most accountable. I think that is something that absolutely I would be in favor of, and less regulation is best.
You repeal Obamacare without question. 2,700 plus pages, most of which had nothing to do with healthcare. But you know, it's funny, I've met with United Healthcare, I've met with a lot of different companies in town in this process, and they all say the same thing. We need to increase the risk pool, and that will drive down premiums. So I think to myself, how do we do that? And I'm in that tough position at my company. We employ about 50 people. And I say that because the Democratic Party's here, and I don't want them to know I'm at 50 yet. But the reality is, if the consumer, the person buying their policy, any one of you in this crowd, was given the same rights a corporation's given when I buy it for my employees, which is I get to write it off, it would help bring costs down. If you could take your policy with you from job to job, it would help bring costs down. Tort reform, malpractice tort reform. Stopping the unneeded tests that are happening because doctors are afraid of being sued and losing everything they've worked for their entire life. Some very logical ideas that deregulate it and restore the greatest system in the world, where, you know, the Prince of Saudi Arabia flies here on a 747 to go to the doctor. We don't need the federal government to make it better.
As I mentioned, I have 14 employees. I purchase a share of their health care, but that's my choice. I spend $150 a month toward their plan, and then they choose. I am scared to death of what Obamacare will mean for me. I can't hire now because I don't know what the effect will be. Small business hires 70% of America's workers. But I'm on the sidelines now, wondering if I can afford to hire. Obamacare is not about health insurance. It's about the government takeover of 1/6 of our gross domestic product. And if you have any of you are veterans out there, and you've used the VA, the Veterans Administration, if you want the Veterans Administration model for the rest of the United States, think twice.
Thank you. I need 15 minutes on this. Let me just explain one thing and make it very clear. For Obamacare to go away, Republicans have to maintain control of the House, they have to win the Senate, and they have to win the White House. Anything short of that, and it's here to stay. And if it's here to stay, the pain is going to be great for every one of us, not just the business owner. Because when you add all that regulation and all the burdens that you put into a business, they're going to have to pass that cost to somebody. And who's it always get passed to? The American taxpayer. And I'm sick and tired of the American taxpayer funding everything. Obamacare is horrible. I think it's unconstitutional. I don't agree with the Supreme Court's decision, but we got it. We've got to play this hand. It's a bad hand. And the business owners, what's going to happen to them? Very painful. The employees, pain. And all the other people that buy goods and services, more pain. It could bankrupt our economy. That's how bad Obamacare is.
This time we'll start with Lisa. And you probably noticed that there's an 800-pound gorilla in this room, and it's the deficit. It's in every room, in every corner of this country. So we're going to ask our candidates if they will, and we are asking for specifics now, give us 3 things that you would support as a member of Congress to balance the budget.
3 things that I would support. Well, let's start with, cutting spending across the board. I think that, that it's tough to just pick 3 things. I think we need to look at wholesale cut in spending. It's really difficult to do. I learned firsthand with the city of Scottsdale, we don't have the guaranteed income through revenue, tax revenue coming in, so we need to tighten our belts. We need to cut departments across the board and don't hand out pay raises when we're not able to do. I honestly can't pick just three things that I would do. I think we need to have an across-the-board analysis of cutting spending entirely, and that is critical. At the city of Scottsdale, we've really done a great job with that. Structural cuts are very, very important. Looking at departments that have, little utility, if any, and perhaps downsizing or outsourcing those. So it would be a combination of global things that I would do.
3 things. Excuse me. Cut, cap, and balance. Now, I signed this pledge months and months and months ago, early on in this race. Drafted by Senator Jim DeMint. It's a great idea. It cuts federal spending levels, like Lisa was saying. It caps spending proportional to GDP. And it forces Congress to do their job. Balance the budget. And that's the type of what some may see as a drastic measure we're going to need to take, but it's common sense. And I'd encourage everybody to go on cutcapandbalancepledge.org. You can go online and look at it. You can look at which candidates and which elected officials have signed this pledge. This was a bill that was going to get brought to the House floor, but our Speaker of the House decided he was not going to bring it up for a vote because he already knew the Senate wouldn't pass it. We better start fighting this fight with real ideas and real solutions, or we're never going to get this debt paid down.
Paul Ryan for Vice President. I like the Ryan plan because it helps to privatize part of Medicare. Doesn't do enough for Social Security. I believe what the Americans for Prosperity believe, that we should do more to privatize Social Security. Those are 2 out of 3. And the third one would be to cut out food stamps. How many people are buying lobster and filet mignon on food stamps? I'm a small business owner, as I've already said. I don't get a bailout. I don't get a stimulus. I can't print money. I got to make it work. I've got to sharpen my pencil. And I got interviewed the other day by Bram Resnick at my office. And he asked me 4 ways to Tuesday. But Wendy, if someone hasn't learned how to save, who is going to bail them out? I said, Bram, not the government. But we've lost 2 generations, he said, Wendy, who haven't learned how to save. I said, if they have to save, they'll learn.
I need 15 minutes again. First of all, Paul Ryan's plan doesn't balance the budget for anywhere from 25 to 28 years. Doesn't balance the budget, doesn't touch the national debt. Rand Paul's got a more aggressive one, it balances it in 5 years. We've got some real problems. We need cuts. We need cuts in a lot more areas than just 3. First of all, if you ever get on my website, jeffthompsonforcongress.com, you can read about it. I say take a 2-year sabbatical in foreign aid. We give $26 billion a year out in foreign aid. We give Pakistan $2 billion, and when we go in and get Osama bin Laden, our helicopter crashes, and they sell our stealth technology to China, and we're giving them $2 billion. You know, we've got to go into our government. We've got a huge cost with illegal immigration. You can build every fence you want. You can put troops on the border. But I'm telling you, if you keep rewarding them to come here, they're going to keep coming here. We spend $12 billion a year on educating illegals' children. We spend $90 billion a year on welfare. If you let them come here and pay for everything, and they pay no taxes, they're going to keep coming. It's a huge expense. We've got to take the Department of Energy and cut it and fire Chew. And my time's up, and I could go on.
I think for starters, budget balancement, we need to balance the budget, and we should have an amendment to do that. And I think we need to very seriously reform our tax code. In fact, I think we need to scrap our current tax code and try and get a flatter, I prefer a flat tax, but a flatter tax, and close the loopholes. What's sinking our country is overregulation, overtaxation, and crony capitalism, which is found in our tax code. And I think that will go a long way toward cutting our deficit. And then absolutely, we need to cut spending across the board. There is not one agency in this government that can't stand very serious cuts. And I would be very actively involved if I were elected to Congress in seeing that happen.
This time we start with Travis. We're going to turn to another major issue of the day. What is your position in respect to illegal immigration? Should individuals who are here illegally be able to become U.S. citizens, and if so, how?
Okay, number one, secure the border. And I'm not skirting the question, but you cannot even address illegal immigrants who are in this country illegally until you can stop them from coming into this country illegally. We secure borders all over the world. There is no excuse for us not to have a secure border. Then we face this dilemma. Who's here? And it's tens of millions, at best guess. Anyone with a criminal history needs to be deported. Anyone who's in our prison system needs to be deported. You have to have a period in this country where you offer folks a chance to come to the table and self-deport. And you need to tell the ones that do that you're welcome to apply the legal way. And we're going to actually enforce our laws, and we're going to let our economy drive how many folks are let into this country every year. And you remind people who are here illegally that by virtue of the term illegal being on the beginning of the term illegal immigration, they have committed a crime.
We can secure the border. It is doable, but there's no political will in Washington. It takes affirmative leadership in Congress to hold the executive accountable to secure the border. You enforce the law. How many of us are parents? When your kid acts up and says, but they're doing it wrong down in the family, down the street, and you say, we're not doing it that way in our family. We're going to enforce the rules here. You send a message when you enforce the law. The law is enforceable. The border is buildable. And I will say one more thing. I lie awake at night worrying about the porous border and the fact that a nuclear weapon can be brought across. I lie awake at night worried about the alliance between jihadists and Mexican drug cartels.
We let 1 million people into this country here legally. There's an 11-year wait, so there's probably about 11, 12 million people in line waiting. The line is very frustrating. The process is frustrating because it's run by our government. We let another 3.5 million people in this country with work visas, green cards, education visas. There are some jobs in this country that need to be filled and are not being filled by the American people. And for those people that fill those jobs, I'm okay with them staying here as long as they would be under a work permit situation. They pay for their own health insurance, they have car insurance, they have life insurance, they have a bank account, and they're paying taxes, and they have no criminal record. okay? If you're here illegally, I'm going to tell you this. I say self-report. If you self-report, you leave the country, but we'll put you on the list at the end of the line and allow you to come back and become a citizen. And yes, we do need to have immigration reform, so maybe that process gets a little easier. If you don't self-report and you're in this country and you get caught, you will be exiled and you'll never be allowed to come back. You have to be proud to be an American. I'm proud of it. All of our parents came here as immigrants. They're proud of it. There's a price to pay for being an American. It's not free.
We've shown in other sectors of our border that we can secure the border, and I think that needs to be our number one priority before we can discuss any public policy solutions to our immigration problem. We can do it. We just need to have an Arizona delegation that is forceful and understands how it can happen and makes that a priority. And then after that, we really need to modernize our immigration laws, because we have to admit to ourselves that people who are here under in an illegal status or an undocumented status did not come here in a vacuum. They came because there was some job attracting them here. So we need to reform and modernize our immigration system so that if there is a demand for unskilled labor or any other type of labor, that there are legal mechanisms in place that are streamlined and affordable for businesses to acquire that type of labor. And then we can mitigate, I think, in a big way, the numbers of illegal immigrants that are crossing across our border.
The federal government, through the military, secures other countries' borders. We certainly are in a position to better secure ours. With a global, and I'm supportive of that completely, with a bigger picture, not just limited to Arizona. I mean, I think that the immigration system definitely needs an overhaul. We need to make it more effective, more efficient, more predictable, starting with individuals educated in our great higher education system. What about keeping those individuals in the country through an HB1 visa that would be provided to the student, rather than have the corporation that's trying to retain them here, trying to invest in human capital and their businesses, go through the arduous process of that immigration aspect. And I think that's an expensive cost to business. So that's where I would start. That's the easy part first. In terms of, I think the question was pertaining to the DREAM Act, if I'm right, when you said stay here illegally. Sorry, I'm cut off. I'd like to expand on that, though. I'll keep talking.
We will start with Wendy on the next question. Some of you will probably remember that we actually appointed a commission to help out with the deficit problem. It was called Simpson-Bowles. Anybody remember that? Yeah. Well, we're going to ask our candidates what their position is on the Simpson-Bowles Deficit Commission report. What is your position on the report that they issued?
It was good in theory, but it was a failure. No one could get along. Senator Kyle considered it an abject failure, and it was the proverbial can kicked down the road. And similarly, we now have sequestration, which is a nice word for gutting our Defense Department. And that was an accounting gimmick. And now we have a situation where if that isn't resolved by the 1st of January, we have severe cuts to our Defense Department. We cannot hold our national security at risk by the use of accounting gimmicks.
Wendy, Simpson-Bowles was a good start. It didn't go far enough, and I think it went into circular thought, right? Yeah, I gotta tell you, we've got a huge spending problem in this country, and every time an issue comes up, it just seems like President Obama says, cut military, cut teachers, cut firemen, cut police. Why doesn't anybody ever step up and say, hey, cut foreign aid? Why don't you fire Chu, as I was saying before, and cut the Department of Energy? Take education, put it back to the state. Take the EPA, stop the stranglehold, put it back to the state. Get rid of HUD. Get rid of Head Start. Cut all those programs, they're failures. Interior commerce, those can all be cut. If we got serious, we could probably find $1 trillion. Why doesn't someone say, stop paying all of the bills of the illegals that come here? No, let's cut military. You know, we should have a very strong military. Now, granted, our military footprint's too big.